Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
You know, I was great right up until the point where you discussed how we were going to do this show. And you said, I'll just get, we'll go through some possible scenarios for, maybe when the college football season will be played or not. And you can answer them. And I thought, okay, that's great. And then it was like, wait. Lots of people are extremely tightly wound about this right now, pretty emotional about this right now, pretty angry about this right now. And you have put this all on my plate for me to be the one that they're angry about. So I got to say, that was well played. I walked right into your trap.
Good. I'm glad. And let's just start right away. Tom, talk to me about, is the coronavirus, is this a hoax or is this something that people need to take seriously? Go on.
I'm going to say this is something people should probably consider taking seriously. That is my opinion based on the opinions of others who have gone to school for something more significant than journalism.
Like what?
I don't know. Something science. I don't really know.
I don't know. The science is so good. So yeah, today's show, Tom, as Tom mentioned, as I talked to Tom and I talked to you, I'm just going to give Tom some scenarios because people, we've been reading about these models of play and when can, are we talking no non-conference? Are we talking, do you start the season in November? And, you're seeing stuff online from reporters. Hey, this AD told me this and this person spoke in confidence with me about this and they don't think it's going to happen. But this one says it is. And as we mentioned on the show earlier in the week, right now, Gene Smith and the athletic directors are simply talking about how long does it take to get ready to play. And he hasn't even begun looking at models. He's read a few of them, but they aren't talking about that sort of thing yet. And so when you hear reporters say, I'm being told this, it's probably just one person telling them that. And it's not from some consensus, if we are to believe our nation's athletic leaders. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't we? They're national leaders. And we know, Tom, we believe them. Correct.
This is me just waiting till you keep talking. There's nothing I can say there that will, nope, not going to step in that bear trap. You keep going.
All right. So what I'm going to do is we're going to run through some scenarios here. Some of the ones that people have talked about, some of them that they haven't, and we'll let Tom tell us, and we'll discuss if they're good, they're bad, what we think, and basically the difficulties and the possibilities. First, Tom, the first scenario, kind of off the wall. Let's see, everything starts fine. How would that work?
Well, if everything starts fine, it seems like the consensus is they probably need 8-ish weeks of prep time. So that means you're getting student athletes back to Columbus or back to their various campuses by beginning of June? Beginning of July. Mm-hmm. So, if Major League Baseball is looking at, one of the potential things that Major League Baseball has talked about is potentially starting the season like around the 4th of July. So if you have, the right combination of testing and there's been sufficient progress in other areas that you can get a group of people, a group of 100 people like a football team together in close quarters and keep people safe and healthy by, say the 4th of July, then that's probably about what it would take. And we could, when you say normal, does that include 100,000 people in the stands on September 5th against Bowling Green? Because that is probably a little bit of a taller. Yeah.
Right. No, that's the most ideal scenario. And that's the one I was throwing out there first. And I'm not sure that anybody is really expecting that to happen at this point, but maybe some people are. I'm not expecting full fanage, but if Major League Baseball is talking about July 4th, then if that is a viable date for one sport to begin, is that training camp or what? Well, I guess whatever it is, to begin then it would be viable, you would think, for another sport to begin their camp at that point.
Yeah, I mean, Major League Baseball's thrown out a ton of different possibilities, and some of them that you've looked at and kind of gone, that's not going to work at all. No, you cannot play every single game in Arizona when it's 115 degrees during the day. Like, nope, that's not going to work. But I think Major League Baseball is looking at potentially the earliest timeline I've seen from any kind of like a real reputable source was, getting that like players into camp by maybe mid-May or so, and then starting sometime in June. And that's probably pretty optimistic, but that's at least something that's being discussed. So, baseball probably doesn't need as much of a ramp up as football does, but, baseball, you probably need 3-ish weeks of spring training, 2 to 3 weeks of spring training at least, to get ready for the season. So, it's a little bit of a different timeline than football, but, if it is safe enough for Major League Baseball teams to be in training camps by late May or mid-June or whatever, then, theoretically it should probably be safe for college football teams as well.
The NFL, I believe, is still talking about, business as usual going ahead as normal. And with Major League Baseball, the Players Association, and the NFL, the Players Association there, I assume will have some say into the safety issues. And but we also know that, because I wonder if the Players Association is good with this, that would maybe increase the likelihood that athletic directors and university presidents and things of that nature, and those people would be okay with it. Because I don't know that professional athletes would necessarily put themselves willingly in harm's way more than they already do. But then again, when you've got a larger number of the voters in that Players Association making, say $500,000 a year compared to the guys at the top making 15 or 20 million a year, they may be more inclined to play through a risk because they've only got a set number of years to maximize themselves, and doing it at 500,000 a year isn't exactly the peak of the sport. So, we'll see what the Players Association thinks and how that, their willingness to go forward impacts the leaders of college sports to move forward. The next scenario I have for you, Tom, 12-game scenario, just like normal, but we start in October and November. I don't think this is too outrageous, and it doesn't necessarily move everything back. You start in October, that has moved stuff back, 1 month. You start in November, it has moved stuff back 2 months. But you can kind of catch up a little bit in December and January if you want to. I don't even know if you need to, because what else are you doing in February?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, if you are as football starved as I think everyone would be if we're not starting football on time this year, I think everyone's going to be fine sitting out in the cold in December or January. That'll be fine. I think that starting in October and doing something close to a full season is probably more likely than being able to start on time, especially being able to start on time with a full crowd. It just buys you a little bit of extra time in order to get all the pieces you need to get in place, testing and all that kind of stuff. It gives you a little bit more time to get all those pieces where they need to be and get people comfortable with where things are. And then you can start. I mean, Ohio State is not doing summer classes in person. They're doing all online through summer semester. Summer semester ends like the first week of August. So, then if at the end of summer semester, when they decide, okay, we're going to do fall semester on campus, then it's completely defensible to have, all your players come back and working on campus starting in August. And, then you have 6 weeks, 8 weeks, get ready and, start the season on whatever, September 20th or October 1st or something like that. That seems to me more likely than starting completely on time.
It seems like it'd be an easy way to, an easy compromise, basically. Just push things back and you still have time to get everything in there. Then the next one I would have would be the 9-game regular season, which you just cut out the non-conference, which doesn't necessarily, I guess it would push things back, but you would start there just wouldn't be those first 3 games, even though nowadays it's not just the first 3 games, it's mixed in there. And we know, the SEC would have to take a pretty big hit in the last week before, the rivalry week. But with that 9-game regular season, you could also start later if you want. And now you are playing fewer games and you're doing it later, which would, I don't know if that eases makes things easier on everybody in terms of the testing or what have you. I was looking at the Reddit college football Twitter account, Reddit CFB, and last week they tweeted they crunched the numbers to figure out the number of COVID testing requirements to, have all the players and staff tested before every game, and counting the FBS and the FCS, they came to about 400,000 tests over the course of a season, 400,000 weekly tests over the course of a season. So 400,000 tests in total. I assume by this point, testing is going to be more readily available, but that's a big number. But I think you say here now, I think it's doable. I don't know that it's as important, kind of maybe a shallow thing to say, for the FCS to be doing it as it is for the FBS. But I don't think a significant number of tests would eliminate or stop the season from going on if we're talking like a 9-game scenario in October and November.
You're saying a significant number of positive tests?
No, just the act of testing.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's probably going to be something that is almost a prerequisite to the season. Like, you have to have something to ensure that you're not exposing people, because it's football. As if you're supposed to stay 6 feet away from people to avoid getting exposed if someone else is sick, even if they're asymptomatic, it's pretty hard to social distance while you're tackling someone or blocking someone. So,
did you see the 2018 defense?
The 1995 Ohio State defense against Michigan, ahead of its time, my column. It seems like that's almost going to be a necessary prerequisite to being able to play, is some kind of a quick, you can't wait 24 hours or 48 hours for results. You need to have kind of a quick result. And it has to be accurate. It can't be 70% accurate. It has to be much more accurate than that. And it has to be available, and it has to be reasonably priced to be able to do it. And, the season is like 130 something days away right now, which, just to put that in perspective, the start of the scheduled regular season Bowling Green game on September 5th is basically as far away from right now as last season's Michigan game is. So, right now it seems like time is simultaneously going extremely fast and extremely slow, but there's a decent amount of time for them for people to figure out whether it's antibody testing or, quick, easy, cheap testing to be able to test players before games. That's something that it seems like is a reasonable thing to expect will be available at that point, but you're going to have that in order to be able to play, almost certainly.
Do you think when we talk about not playing or not having fans in the stands, and no students on campus, it almost feels like the football players would be there like in an Olympic village, but it's just I don't even know if it's the other athletes being allowed in or if it's just football players who are allowed to play. But as vast as the Ohio State football program is, you're not just testing the players, you're testing the pizza chefs, the guy who comes in to fix the rifle machine, the arcade game. You're talking about the barber who is working there and the sports psychologists where, and it may be just, not extra 100 people a day, but there's so many people you have to take into account that come from outside in. And then, the players themselves they're having visitors. And I think we're all still going to be doing some social distancing pretty well, but still they want fewer than 10 people at this house party. Okay, we've got 9. Those 9 people have been in contact with 6 other people, and so there's still a way for everybody to carry this thing. So that's why, like you said, testing is going to have to be a thing. And I think, I would like to think that can happen, that it can exist. But I just keep coming back to some administrators not wanting to put the players in that type of danger, or the players not necessarily wanting to do that. Even though, these administrators, the athletic directors know that if the players aren't out there, if there's no football, that's bad for everybody. But it's a bad look if you are sending football players out to do this. But again, you're still trying to mitigate all of that with all of these testing. So it's not like they're just throwing them to the wolves. They're throwing them to the wolves, but they're giving them adequate protection as much as they can. They're testing them to make sure that they don't have like some sort of wolf lure in their blood that just brings on all of these wolves. They're trying to protect them as much as they can as they put them out there. So it's just a matter of how pleasing can you make it to the palate of the decision makers, I guess.
Yeah, and that's going to be the question is, can they do the season? Almost certainly, if there's reasonable testing, they could play the season, probably starting with the first week of the season. Mm-hmm. They could do it and without fans, and it's doable to do it and to play it as scheduled, assuming there's reasonable testing. But yeah, you're getting into a whole bunch of other issues, and if you're defining college football as basically essential workers, like that's for a sport whose business model is based on the fact that no, these aren't employees, what are you talking about? No, that complicates that argument quite a bit, probably legally. And I think when you hear people talk about the impact that football has on all the other sports, and that football pays for the entire athletic department, like some of the student athlete language and the NCAA commercials about, oh, look, they get letter jackets. Okay, that's fine for volleyball and field hockey and tennis and golf and whatever, but they're probably bringing more to the table than they're taking away from it. So yeah, I mean that kind of complicates some other discussions, but I mean this may be something where so much depends on the revenue from football that as soon that may help push people who are sort of on the fence towards figuring out a way to make it happen and get them on the field at some point.
You would also have to have it where if somebody does test positive, that doesn't shut everything down. That's where you rely on the tests even more after that. And as long as everybody is good, then you're good. You just, that guy is on the 15-day disabled list, basically, literally, where they're going to be off in quarantine for 2 weeks, sitting in their dorm room by themselves or whatever. And you just wouldn't want to see it all hinging on the hopes of, as long as nobody gets sick, we'll be fine. Because we saw the NCAA tournament was going to go off without a hitch until what's his face from the Utah Jazz came down with it, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is real now."
Oh, now it's real. Oh,
now it's real, and so gosh, what if that were to happen during the tournament? And so you had then Duke and like Kansas pulling out pretty quickly after that. And so basically, if you're going to go forward with this, there also has to be a protocol for what happens when somebody tests positive, because it's a lot of people and somebody's going to get it. And then it's Ryan Day's availability list at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, that sets up a real fascinating scenario where, if they're doing this testing on a Saturday morning and like all of a sudden some team's quarterback doesn't come out for pregame warmups and it's like, oh crap. And, it's probably good that Mark D'Antonio is out of the coaching business, because, someone tested positive. He might have said, oh, no, I just got the wind knocked out of him. He's
exactly.
Fine. There's a deep cut for you. It's a matter of if the testing is good enough and they can test and be reasonably confident that, yep, this is going to be accurate and we can rely on these results and we can get them reasonably quickly, then that makes it possible. And just everyone just kind of has to know, like, I mean, the next man up mentality, like, you really could be the next man up, because you don't know if, someone could be asymptomatic on the morning of the game. And if they test them, and, this probably needs to be NCAA or conference run testing so that you don't have people trying to, hide results or something. If it's a big game and your star quarterback is testing positive, like, is someone going to really be motivated to run him out there anyway? Maybe. So it probably needs to be run by someone other than the teams themselves. But that sets up a whole bunch of real interesting possibilities for the season if that's how it goes.
Now I'm imagining somebody asymptomatic testing positive on senior day and then getting introduced, and, no hug from the coach. It's just like an 8-foot salute and then a wide berth. And the family is all like, standing back, and the rest of the entire seniors and their families are standing back. Almost like that lone senior is dotting the I because nobody else is around him. But I agree, Tom. There's a way to do it if you want to do it badly enough. And my concern is that they won't want to do it badly enough, even though they need to. Tom, another scenario, this was sent in by listener Suncard19. Basically, once, maybe the Big Ten holds all of the games in 2 locations, and you play them, because I assume in this scenario, not that he says this, but maybe things start later in the season, so it's colder. So basically you play all of the games in, say, Indianapolis, and all of the other half of the division games or the conference games in Detroit, where both of these are inside. And so whether it's a Friday, Saturday, or you play 4 games all on Saturday, or I guess 3 or 4 games, whatever it would take on each, in Detroit and in Indianapolis, just one right after another, like a March Madness type of thing, like a state tournament type of thing. And this is every week, and they all come from the same place, and you've just got a quadruple header. And it's also a way to, no fans. Things are as pristine as can be all season long. What do you think about that?
I cannot tell you how appealing that idea is. Like, if we got to go cover, like, we just go to Indianapolis every week, or we just go to Ford Field in Detroit every week, and we get to just go watch football and cover football at 9 in the morning, and then 1 in the afternoon, and 5 in the afternoon, and then 9 at night, and we just get to watch 4 games every single week. Like, yep, sign me up for that right now. I would love that. Or you do, 1 game Friday evening, and then you do 1, 5, and 9 on Saturday or something. Like, that sounds awesome. That sounds incredible. I mean, there's all sorts of logistical issues which make this not probably how it's going to go. You I guess you'd have to, if the season starts in, December or January or something, you'd almost have to do that and just sort of figure it out from there, and just play a conference schedule, I guess. But, you're again relying on reliable testing, quick, reliable testing being available at that point. And it's no less realistic than some of the stuff that MLB has thrown out about just playing at spring training sites and just having a cactus league versus a grapefruit league this spring or this year or something like that. So yeah, I mean, sure, it certainly could work, and it would be, if it did work, it would be absolutely incredible to watch.
I would love it. I think that's my number 2 choice in terms of all of these scenarios, because I'm a guy who I like to, if it's a 3:30 game, we're at the press box by noon and I'm watching football, you're working, whatever.
Sounds about right.
I'm watching what's on TV. And then if, now instead of like watching what's on TV, there's games there. And I guess since there'd be no fans, we could probably sit wherever we wanted and worked, like take a suite, any of the suites basically. Oh my God, Tom, we could have suites to ourselves. And this is just getting better and better. I'm going to be lost in thought for a moment right now, just imagining. This would be awesome. No, but there's, it would just be, it would make the best of a ideal situation. I think it would be fun for everybody. It would be an event every single week. Not that college football isn't, but like I talked, it's like March Madness every single week, where it's just boom, 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 all from the same venue. Maybe you switch out some of the play-by-play guys to give them a break, because by 9 p.m. they're going to be, sounding like no voice unless it's Gus Johnson. Then you can just keep them in there and, I don't know, throat steroids. Who knows? But it would be fun. I wouldn't be. I would be in favor of that, because once I saw that, I thought, man, that just sounds like an NCAA tournament trip. It sounds like a bowl trip every single week. And as you listeners know, we likes those.
Bowl trips are always fun. But yeah, it would be pretty incredible to basically get an NCAA tournament, pod, but be able to have it be football and not basketball. Absolutely incredible. Like, how could you make the NCAA tournament better? What if it was football? Like that would be, I'm all in.
And this leads me to my next 2 scenarios, the final 2 scenarios, Tom, that you have no idea what's coming. Say you can, they're saying like we can do 6 games, start in November, but what that allows you to do is expand the playoffs by, say, now it's a 16-team playoff, because you've played fewer regular season games, so you're not worn out, and this is a way to generate more money, perhaps, in terms of television, because you've got 4 rounds of the playoffs, or 3 rounds of the playoffs, and so basically you would have, say it's a 6-game season, start in November, you're done by the middle of December, then playoffs start January 1st, like they normally do, and you'd have in each quadrant, you'd have 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. And then obviously those winners would play. Say the first round happens at home or in the nearest roofed venue, even though you can't really go with that, because we're still talking about NFL stadiums, and who knows, what's open. But I'm sure there's stadiums you could find. Is there still an NFL team in St. Louis? They've got a stadium. Nobody's using that thing, right?
Yeah, the XFL's not using it anymore, so
there you go. So what do you think about like 6 games, but then an expanded 16-team playoff?
That would be so interesting to watch, because theoretically, you probably have in a 6-game season, you probably have roughly 10 to 16 unbeaten teams. And then, what does the playoff field look like? Is it just conference? You can't go conference champions. It's probably just like basically a purely BCS ranking or college football playoff ranking. So, think about how make or break every one of those 6 games is, and how, based on how the Big Ten does its scheduling, they would just make all their tough teams, all their good teams play each other, and the SEC would just have Alabama and Alabama would just play Vanderbilt 6 times. Yeah. But think about how like do or die every single one of those games is, because it's like Ohio State, going to Penn State this year, for example, or going to Michigan State, something like that. Like if Ohio State loses the game at Penn State on October 24th in the middle of the season, they're still not out of the college football playoff race, because you have time to get back in. You win the Big Ten. You're if you're 12-1, you win the Big Ten, you're still probably going to get in. Or if you lose at Oregon this year, for example. It's not, it's a big game, but it's not like completely do or die. If you're playing 6 games, Ohio State probably gets the benefit of the doubt at 5-1, but there's an awful lot of teams. If you're like, if you're a Michigan or you're in Iowa or you're a, Michigan State or something, if you're 6-0, you got a decent chance to be in. If you're 5-1, you're probably out, and that's like you don't get the benefit of the doubt. So those 6 regular season games would be so incredibly high stakes, and then, it would be super, super interesting to see a 16-team playoff. And it's just, it doesn't have to stay that way. It would probably be fun. I think that a 16-team playoff would devalue a regular, like a normal 12-game regular season. But, I keep going back to baseball for my examples, but like baseball has talked about doing a short season, or, if one of the things that I've heard people talk about is like, what if you just have basically a 30-game, a 30-team tournament, and it's just like 3-game series, and you're advancing through the tournament if they don't have time to do a regular season. Like, just basically acknowledge like, yep, this is a weird year that's going to kind of have a little bit of an asterisk. We're not even going to pretend it's a regular season, like a normal season. Let's get a little crazy and do something a little different and a little fun. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, that's okay. We're going back to the normal way next year anyway. So yeah, I would be like a 6-game. If it's a 6-game regular season, like make it a 16-team tournament. And you know what? Let's see Memphis or Boise State or whoever, like, yep, congratulations, you've got a seat at the table. Go get them. Go get them, UCF. Earn this national championship.
And I know it sounds outrageous to say stuff like that, but or to propose these kinds of playoffs, but like people in charge are gonna be willing to be malleable in this. I don't know how malleable, but we know it's probably not going to be a normal season. And I think Gene Smith said those exact words, that they're not, the likelihood that everything goes off normally, fans and everything, is unlikely. And so you're going to be addressing things as they come, and some things might be a really good idea. So then you're like, well, okay, now how do we make this happen? And you look into that. Tom, my final scenario, and this branches off of the 16-team playoff, but it's a 6-game season, but it's a 24-team playoff. And hear me now. So it's still 4 pods, 6 teams in each pod. It's 1 versus 6, but the winner of the 1 versus 6 then gets a bye, and they will face the winner of the 2 versus 5 and 3 versus 4. So this allows both the top 4 seeds to have a bye, and also if they get upset by the bottom 4 seeds, now those guys have just a huge benefit by getting a bye week. Plus, being the lesser teams, they might need that extra bye week to get somebody back from from quarantine or whatever. How do you feel about a 2014 playoff where the winner of the 1 versus 6 get a bye week after winning?
It's not the dumbest thing you've said on this podcast, so that's something. Yeah, I mean, like a 24-team. Isn't 24-team what FCS does? Doesn't FCS do a 24-team playoff?
I don't know.
I'm almost positive that's right. That's right, but I will look it up as I'm talking, as I'm vamping like an expert right now.
Like the 1 seeds, do they get a first round bye?
Vampity vamp vamp vamp. Yes, 1 seeds.
That's dumb.
I believe. Yes, 1 seeds get to. They do a they do a 24-team playoff. The top 4 seeds on each side get a bye. So basically, the top 8 seeds in the bracket get a bye. And I mean, that's probably what they would do. Or, you do a 24-team playoff, you're getting into the point where you're devaluing the regular season quite a bit. And a 24-team playoff for a normal season would be a terrible idea. Mm-hmm. But, if you put every conference champion in there, that would at least be kind of interesting. And you all these group of 5 teams get a shot at the big boys. And yes, odds are Alabama's going to stomp, whoever comes out of the CUSA or the Mountain West or the American or the Pac-12. But, whoever it is, it doesn't, it would still be just kind of interesting to see all those, the quote unquote little guys get a chance to really make a run at it. And, again, like, let's go nuts. Go ahead. Why not? It's a, obviously like a one-off situation, mm-hmm. but and in a normal season, a 24-team playoff completely devalues the regular season, but that's in a weird circumstance like this, like, sure, why not? It would not be the worst thing if, like, it was 2020 national champion San Diego State. Like, sure, let's get weird.
Well, and even just saying that the top 4 seeds or whatever get the top 8 or whatever get that bye, that's more realistic. But it could be a way to basically save the season. Like, well, we know this works, and it's not like the FCS. It's not like those teams go and play in the nearest dome. They're on campus playing. And it's January. It's December when they're doing this. So, I mean, there is history there, and it does work. And maybe that is what they do, rather than say if the season starts in November, rather than playing November, December, January, and into February like a full season. I don't know if they can do that. You play like a half a season, and then you've got that 2014 playoff, and I think you could probably, there'd be some legitimacy to that national champion, even in a one-off scenario where then they would come back and the playoffs would be, 4 games the next year, probably for one final year before it goes to 8. But I would like to see various options kept alive. I wonder the validity of a tournament scenario, and maybe when we talk to Gene Smith again in a couple weeks, he'll be at a point where he could answer like yes or no, like no, that would never ever happen. That is a stupid thing to suggest. You're an idiot for saying it. Please get off of this call. I am alerting the police. Or, you know what? That's probably the smartest thing I've ever heard. I don't know which one it would be yet.
I think you're missing the obvious answer, which is surprise door number 3, which is, hey, that sounds awesome. Therefore, the NCAA would never do that. So, no,
fair.
No.
Yeah, you just solved that one. All right, Tom. So I appreciate you hammering out these scenarios with me. Any final thoughts on any of it?
Yeah, every time we write about this, like there seems like there's this idea that if we're writing about the fact that college football might not happen the normal way this year, that's what we're rooting for. Like, no, I assure you, we want it every bit as much as you want it, for an entertaining and from an entertainment perspective, from a financial well-being perspective, like this is we're in this, and every coach wants to do it. Athletic directors want to do it. Like there's no one who doesn't want football to happen. I'm sure governors of states also know that you want football to happen, and that if they don't make football happen, that is going to make them unpopular. And if they're politicians, their popularity matters for their future employment. So I think it's worth remembering, everyone wants this to happen, but also people are trying to take care of student athletes who are not professional athletes. So there are probably going to be some differences in the conversations around college football than there will be for the NFL, where guys have more money at stake, guys are professionals, guys are unionized. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different elements to the professional game from the college game. So it's worth keeping all that stuff in mind just as we're having these conversations. We're all on the same same team here, gang. Like we're all rooting for the same thing. So, but people have to make the right decision, and this is sort of an unprecedented situation, and we don't know what we don't know yet. So it'll be real interesting to see how this all plays out. But let's try not to get angry at the nice people who are just telling you what's going on.
Plus, people were asking us to talk about this. All right. So if you want to get upset at anybody, get upset at those people.
Exactly.
Do you think we want to be talking about this? No, we want to be talking about how things are going at linebacker. Tom, how are things going at linebacker?
Much the same. Back to you.
Back to you. All right. We want to thank you all for listening. We always do appreciate it. We appreciate your feedback. Hey, while you're at it, if you're not doing anything, or maybe, a couple minutes, you can take a break from work and go rate and review our show. We haven't asked you to do that in a long time. However many stars you want, between 5 and 5. Positive reviews are the best kind. If you want to leave a negative review, just tweet me instead. I get that all the time. I'm used to it. I'm a big boy. I can block you and report you just as easily, as I used to be able to any other given day. So thank you all for listening. Go rate us. Go review us. Come back. Listen again. We will talk to you shortly. Thanks.
We could steal a car and leave.